Greetings and salutations to all you folks out there. Let me make sure that I've got everything set up properly here. And it looks like, yes, we are set. Welcome in to the Legend of the Stars Tourney qualifiers. Last year, this was a really large tournament. A whole lot of fun to get through. Basically, it brings together all of the best players in FAF. They get to compete for a $500 final prize along with prizes along the way for each of the 4 qualifiers. The top 3 finishers plus the highest ranked under 1900 player for the qualifier gets into the final tournament for a total of 16 to duke it out come December. So, we are going to be watching the qualifiers today. The first game is a symmetrical Cybran matchup between Stabe Nice on the bottom left and Inspector Cot on the top right. Before we dive into the early builds, a little bit about the map. It is Forbidden Pass version 4, please. Okay, appreciate the bits, Roey. Let's go ahead and take a look-see in at the base. You'll notice that we've got an attack moved engineer up to the top left that is sucking up tree clumps to make up the difference in the build here. We've got 4 mass extractors down, rolling into the 3rd P-gen. It does look like we are going to be pushing 2nd air, most likely, off of those 7 P-gens using the extra energy that is reclaimed from all of these trees to float for the 3rd land as engineers run up towards the front. If I go queue up here, there we can see where they are headed. A little bit of manual reclaim going up to the mass extractor hydro and 2 additional land factories. Up on this side, Inspector Cot is actually assisting his ACU with an engineer. That is going to give him a lot faster build speed on his air factory, getting that up much more quickly at the cost of a higher energy expenditure. But you'll notice that he has sent 2 engineers over to this side, reclaiming all of the trees on this edge in record time. He hasn't reoriented his NGs for the forward hydro or anything, so it may take a moment for him to get back on track with that early rush build, but it is going to get his factories out a whole heck of a lot quicker. Now, we do have extra adjacency on the air factory with some more power generators. 3rd land, same as Stabe Nice, is rolling, and yeah, both of these guys are off to a relatively decent start. You'll notice that the meta on this map is to move your ACUs forward into the 4 mass extractors on the opposing side. This is one of those maps where Aeon and Seraphim have a distinct advantage due to their ability to cross the river. Since both of these guys are Cybran, it is not going to make that much of a difference, but if you can manage to get a beachhead across on your opponent's side, that is going to make your land spam war significantly easier, and it's going to deny 4 mass extractors on your opponent's side of the map. There are an additional 4 over here. Usually the way it plays out is each player secures for sure their bottom and top edges respectively. Then you'll have a fight over these 2, and the ACUs maintain control of this, at least for the better portion of the game. There was an early bomber out from Stabe Nice, but between him not getting his air factory online as quickly and also going first bomber, that is going to result in an air superiority loss. That bomber is going to be no good whatsoever except for a wreck on the bottom of the sea once it finishes sinking and actually converts over to a wreck. And that's going to put Inspector Cot ahead on air, as well as getting his ACU up to the front a little bit more quickly. Nice little pickup on the top. It was only a land scout, only something that would provide a little bit of intel, but nonetheless, he has seized the opportunity, and then Cot's going to wait a little bit and see if another raiding unit is following behind that scout, because typically it's a good assumption wherever there be land scouts, there may be labs nearby, so you don't want to be too hasty in your movements and lose out on an opportunity to snag that raider before it can get to your oh so fragile engineer. Now this is a horrible error. He placed a move order in to try and edge build a land factory up top, and unfortunately did not get the engineer quite close enough to get it. He's now recovered and changing his build and getting what he can salvaged from the situation. But that's kind of a frustrating thing to see when you've got this whole thing planned out, exactly how you're going to do all this crap, and then lo and behold, your engineer walks away, and there is nothing for it. Inspector's going to pick up the 4 mass extractors much more quickly. Looks like he's got a cleaner build overall, and that is reflecting in the scores here. Although he did slip and miss this raiding party heading up the right-hand side. Only 1 Mantis. That is not going to be able to kill off this raiding party, but it is going to deter it a little bit and let him know that it is present. Probably going to lose the engineer, but it could have been much worse if that thing had moved all the way up the edge and he had not seen it at all. Looks like ACU is finally moving in to the expansion. This is looking a little bit dicey up here. So we've got 4 Mantis on this side with only 2 to defend. There is a scout over here, so he knows exactly what is going on. And we do have another 3 Mantis coming from the far edge. So I do believe that this engineer is going to die, and that's going to have to be a new expansioneer sent out at a huge time detriment. But the same thing is happening on the south side, so we don't have to worry our little heads about an uneven approach for these players. Going hard in on air production, it looks like Stabe Nice is going to recover a bit of air control and pick up 2 engineer kills with the bomber on this side. That is going to slow down the expansion yet more that was planned for this right-hand edge. And hopefully, well, no, we do have an interceptor picked off by the 2 on this side. So that's going to be 5 inties versus 5, pretty much a dead even heat. But look at the amount of assistance that is on Stabe Nice's factory. That is going to rapidly outpace anything that Inspector Cott can push, though he is building a second air factory. Engineers all up in here picking off the Mantis, picking off the engineer and the radar. Meanwhile, both mass extractors are going to go down, and the first Mantis at least shall be doomed that rolls into the expansion. Luckily, through a bit of superior unit manipulation, Inspector Cott has been able to win out on an air fight, so he'll buy himself a little bit of time. If we take a look at this, it looks like this is now 1 3/4 factory production, 20 build power on the factory, 5 per NG, so not quite 2. That means that once this factory comes online, Inspector Cott will be ahead in production. This is one of the cool things that you can kind of compensate with in air fights, and to some extent land fights. That's a little bit more straightforward. If you do have inferior production, but you continually pick fights when you have a winnable situation, and you can win with a high enough number left over, sometimes you can maintain air control through sheer skill and not through production, though that does become a rarer thing as the game goes on. That's going to be a 6 engineer drop. Highly ill-advised considering the fact that there are 4 Mantis within striking distance. Looks like Stabe Nice scheduled that out, did not realize what was waiting for him on that edge. Those are now going to pull back right here. Bomber coming in and laying in a pile of hurt on those Mantis. That's going to be 1 left, soon to die, to the bomber, and then that transport will be able to drop the rest of the payload off, securing those 4 mass extractors and hopefully a couple more factories worth of production. So we do have 1 factory over here. Stabe Nice is going to move in on this lonely mass extractor on the backside of the forested hilltop. I don't know that he'll be able to actually maintain control of that, but we shall see. Inspector Cott laying in some point defense. This is not actually a bad idea, because it does kind of help contain the ACU to some degree. I would love to see a radar in range of this, and there is. I totally missed it right over here, but there is not one on this side for either player. Engineers dispersed out amongst the mexes and radar locations and whatnot. Looks like we're running 3 land factories, 2 air factories in the back, +2 and 2 for an incoming total of 7. That's going to be 3 factories plus that's going to be a total of 7 as well. So they're both running an even amount. Interesting that they're both going so neck and neck at this. Although we do have a clumping of units up at the top edge for Inspector Cott. Not exactly advisable. Those units need to be down somewhere doing some good. They would be able to secure this with many fewer casualties than will probably be sustained by this 5 versus 4 fight. But yes, he is going to move them eventually. Probably just something where he had queued up engineers on that factory originally, hadn't moved the queue, and then instead scheduled tanks for engineers. This is a beautiful example of a bomber down here. Lots of AoE. Of course, if you're only doing a couple hundred damage per pass, that isn't much, but multiply that out times 4 to 6 units. You're ending up with sometimes near 1k damage potential per pass on a T1 bomber, which is not an insignificant thing when you're in an early fight where a single tank can make a difference in map control. Inspector Cott is going to take away this base on this edge. Not a good situation for Stabe Nice at all. Looks like he is going to walk into a rather large clump of Mantis indeed. That's going to be 5, 10, 13, 14, 15 tanks plus an Arty. If he gets in a good overcharge and micros carefully, he should be able to survive this, but with the units incoming from the back, it is going to be sketchy as all get out. Stabe Nice moving slowly towards the edge as the pathfinding is screwed repeatedly on his ACU by those enemy units moving in under his feet. ACU slowly tanking this damage out, allowing his own few units to gain the upper hand. He is going to maintain about half HP on the ACU and push back into the fight. He needs to be careful though, because there is a point defense over on that edge that may cause him some grief. We're going to need, yes, a responsive T1 bomber wiping out the Mantis before we get into the build power and raid anything at all. We've got a huge number of bombers building up, 5 total across the map that I saw, unless one got shot down over here, and that does appear to be the case. So 4 T1 bombers at the ready, more than enough to carpet bomb out a substantial group of T1 units. I was fearful for Stabe Nice's stance because it looked like he was going to lose a lot of map control on that. But in the end, he was able to recover. We're going to set focus army... Oh, hold on. Set focus army to 1, which should, yes, give us Stabe Nice's unit statistics. That's going to be 43 total income, rocking a full energy bar with 200 extra on power. That means that he has overbuilt T1 by a fair degree, but it doesn't give him the opportunity to run an ACU upgrade should he so choose. This also does mean that he is operating mostly on reclaim, although 20 of that is going into 2 T2 mexes, so he may have underestimated or overestimated the amount of mass that he has in storage, rather. That is 3 simultaneous T2 mass extractor upgrades. So he was about to overflow. That was actually the problem, and that is largely due to him reclaiming with his ACU over on the right. Monumental air fight going down right now. Stabe Nice is going to take a handy control in the air with wide margins of error. That's going to leave him roughly 25 interceptors. I was going to guess at 20, but I am underestimating by quite a bit. 25 inties on air control. That is no insignificant thing. Set focus army to 0, I think. Yes, it is the array. So that is going to put him at 41 mass income. Inspector Cott is looking at 1 T2 mass extractor coming online with no others scheduled. So that is indicative of him going more for unit production rather than upgrades. But that is understandable when your opponent has a ton of reclaim at his disposal and you are just struggling to survive. I do love the drop coming in on this side. We have total air domination for Stabe Nice, camping over top of all of these factories, preventing any interceptors from being built. We are seeing stationary T1 anti-air going down in the base. That is going to give a little bit of air denial so that he can get back on his feet, but it is going to take him a long time indeed to overcome that kind of deficit. In the meantime, we do see a lovely little T2 factory over in Blue's base. And that is going to, I am sure, begin scouting gunships as soon as this Tech 2 power generator is complete. And yes, there it is, Renegades on the move. Renegades, of course, fairly unique among the gunships because it is the only one outside of course, the T4 Soul Ripper. It is the only gunship that has AoE. So when you're looking at T1 units all over the field, that is a good gunship to have because it can damage 2 or 3 at once instead of only the one single target. That was a repetitively redundant statement. There is a counter though, and that counter is mobile flak. So if a T2 factory were to occur, mobile flak might be able to sustain some kind of foothold on the field. But if he lets that go unchallenged, yep, there it is right there. This could turn into an extremely dangerous situation very, very quickly. Looks like Inspector Cot is running over towards the expansion on this side. No veterancy yet for Stabe's commander, but I think he is 1 to 2 T1 units away from veterancy, so that shouldn't be too much of an issue for him to get. T1 bombers and Mantis drop in combination are going to be able to seize control of Northern Expansion, totally denying those mass extractors and bringing the map control in favor of Stabe. Now, until this happened, it was actually still 50-50 counterintuitively, because while both of these are in control of Stabe, Inspector Cot has both of the center groups of 4 mass extractors. So this does end up kind of playing out a bit oddly, to be fair, but I think that we're about to start seeing the decline of Inspector Cot. He has come out on the losing end of a land battle, though his ACU is still rather beefy on HP. We've got 5 gunships, 6 gunships in play, ready to swoop in rather, and take out the incoming attack defense, attack missiles, possibly even the ACU. ACU appears to be moving over towards the safety of the water in this little pond over here. Brink needs to definitely get untongue-tied. It has been a while since I've casted some games, and it's a bit of a different mindset to be in, especially when your brain is split 17 different ways. Hopefully I can get back on top of things. T1 bombers coming in on the engineers. Fine pick at the start because that's going to prevent the building of those T1 anti-air. We've also got some Wagners coming in from Inspector Cot, so all is not lost. It is just in a bit of a fragile position. Gunships have had to be retained in order to kill off these Wagners on this side. You can see the AoE taking effect, quickly mincing those Wagners up. Gun upgrade going down on Inspector Cot. If he can get that completed, that is going to even up the combat on the right edge. We do have mobile flak in the field in multiple positions, and the air numbers are now drawing even between the 2 players. So this is something that you always have to consider when one side starts building an inordinate amount of combat air. If one side is building gunships, the other side is building interceptors, usually the air control will shift at some point due to the underproduction of inties by one side. I don't know that we've hit that critical mass point, especially with the gunships in for potential meat shielding, but the longer these inties hang out over the flak, the more dire the situation looks air-wise for Blue. However, with the Renegades in on the T2 power, that is going to be a devastating blow to Inspector Cot, who is, by the way, going to be in the middle of a gun upgrade, although he is still high enough on his power levels. That is kind of incredible to float even without the even with the loss of that T2 power generator. It is an odd thing to see indeed. But Inspector Cot is going to take the Control K option, having lost his T2 HQ, having lost the majority of his map control, and yeah, that is GG. I must say that was extremely well played by Stabe Nice. I was a little bit worried about him at the beginning of the game, since he lost several of the early expansions and seemed to be a little bit worse for wear on map control. I would largely attribute this win to the fight over here, where he shed about 50% of the HP on his commander, traded that in for 400 to 500 mass in reclaim, was able to rock out on 4 T2 mass extractor upgrades, and then was able to use that excess in mass to be able to go T2 air and T2 land and bring the map to its knees for the blue side. Well freaking done. Let's go ahead and hit up that score screen just so you guys get a clean view. And you can see Stabe nice behind at about 8 minutes. That was where I was a little worried about it. And then ramping up to infinity later on, mostly due to the extra mass that he was able to bring in. This is where the mass income was a huge problem, right over here. But towards the end, blue ahead in every single way. Well fought, indeed. For the next game, we're going to drop down into the losers bracket. This is Jonas versus Esperon. This is a 1600 versus 1200 rated player in the global rating system, but for ladder rankings, which is a bit more applicable here, Jonas is a 14 and Esperon an 1800. So the map is Theta Passage. This is a very difficult one to play. It is kind of a pain in the butt due to the fact that it is very tiny. You have only a handful of minutes before you make your first engagement. It is a furious battle to the death that basically never gets a break, and even a single tank can make the difference. Of critical importance is your build order. It does look like Jonas is going for an extra power generator after the land factory. Traditionally, you'll have the ACU walk up to get this mass extractor, then another. Engineer to the hydro. You'll go either first power generator here or an additional power generator after the hydro to go between the land factories that are coming in. It looks like Jonas is actually doing both, though if I'm looking, it's hydro, land factory, P-gen, land factory for a triple land opening, and then you have got to make excellent use of every bit of resources that you can scrounge up. Esperon is doing a bit more mass-intensive build, so he's gone for all 4 mass extractors before the hydro, has multiple engineers up and prepared to build this hydroelectric power generator. I don't know that he can actually finish that before stalling with the amount of build power that he has on it. Although, it may be the case, well, that was relatively painful. Set focus army 1, I'm going to take a guess. Yes, that is Esperon. 220 in storage and complete. So the extra walk time without actually building anything was able to level out his power. Because typically if you build with that much assistance, it's not that, something that you have to realize is that over time, energy production matters. So your ACU is constantly ticking out 20, and if you build this too quickly, you'll sap your reserve before it can be refilled, then you end up stalling. And he was, I think, well, probably calculated to avoid that, but lucky to avoid it nonetheless. I for sure would not have tried that, but now I know that it works. Hopefully you do too, and we can all learn something from this endeavor. We've got lots of manual reclaim being placed out. A little bit from Jonas, but relying a bit more heavily, I think, on attack move orders than Esperon is. And Esperon is going to also go for additional land factories. So that is 3 total on the start. Separate engineer building out power generators while 2 are building the land factories. This is a classic build because with 2 NGs on the land factory and 1 on the P-gen, you finish both at roughly the same time. And you need 1 power generator to run each land factory with a tiny, tiny surplus of 2 power. So what Jonas is doing is technically the same-ish, kind of, but you'll notice that it's 3 total versus 2 total building the factories. So I do believe that Esperon is going to ramp up his land production quite a bit more quickly, and that will cause some problems for Jonas a bit later on. On the north, neither player is going to be able to take control of the expansion in its totality with land units. We are going to have a bit of a raiding problem over here on the right for Jonas, as Esperon came out 2 tanks ahead in his push to the right. Jonas picking up these wrecks. Do bear in mind that these are only worth less than 100 apiece. So what's happening here is Esperon is actually sucking up a multitude of 10 mass rocks instead of going for the wrecks. And I do believe that there is more mass total in these than there are in the wreckages, which is going to put Esperon a bit ahead in reclaim as well. I think what we're watching now is someone with a bit more practiced build order versus someone who is to a degree winging it. This would be similar to what I would do in a ladder match, I think. Jonas is pretty much on point with my level of play. That is going to be an air factory coming up in the back, which could provide a distinct advantage should bombers come out in full force, but is also going to mean that there's one less land factory running. So it entirely depends. Jonas is about to get himself killed. He is walking into the ACU with a pack of rabid manti on his back. This is about to be very, very bad indeed. I anticipate death within a minute and a half for Jonas. He has seen the ACU. He is running, playing Ring Around the Rosie on the hill, but that is going to put him in the reach of all of these T1 units, which are immediately going to move in and try to block his progress. Esperon not actually committing to that kill, which I feel like is a bit odd. He definitely could have gone in for that and won it, but I guess he is going to go a bit more for the sure thing. Just in case it didn't work, he doesn't want to sacrifice the entirety of his base to the small raiding party moving up through the rear. Jonas is going to be able to claim the 2 mass extractors up on the top, but I don't know that he will have enough units to be able to sustain this position until he can get the point defense online. If he does get the PD up, that is going to do wonderful things for his map control. Jonas, oh Jonas dear, you should have moved through the south edge. You could have done so much more effective raiding. But in the meantime, while supplying a few wrecks, there are not a ton of mass deposits on the other side of the field, although there are a few, and that is going to eliminate 2 extra mass extractors from Esperon's control. So all in all, it is looking okay for Jonas. Esperon is just a tad ahead, and that is understandable due to the fact that he is holding his expansion on this side where Jonas is forgetting to requeue his engineer, I think. Although the NG down here is going to die before the reclaim can be gotten, and we're going to have another mass extractor down. So, map control pretty much even, but perhaps possibly maybe slightly favoring Jonas. We do have an interceptor out. 2 interceptors. You should be building straight bombers, my friend. Take advantage of that opportunity, but we do have a cancellation of the land factories on this edge, a scaling back of the build power plans by Esperon, since he has realized that he's not going to be able to dominate the map as he first thought, and we're going to see the air factory come online to counter any potential bombers. This is one of the things that I really hate about this map. Sometimes you play the entire thing, not a land factory all game, you get to just kind of coolly assume that you're not going to need air, but then whichever player produces an air factory first sometimes gets out to a major lead due to bomber aggression, and it can be kind of a pain. It looks like Esperon may have overstepped slightly here. Jonas standing off and firing from range. Both ACUs duking it out with each other as that bomber is harassing those units. Direct bomber placement on the ACU, which I do think is a mistake, should be eliminating the Mantis around and not trying to damage the ACU itself. Esperon dipping to a critically low level of HP, about a third of his potential. He is going to be able to fall back into a point defense that might just save his life, as Jonas is about 2,000 HP ahead of him. But that is going to protect him at least for a little while longer. And now we have counter raiding going on the south side. Esperon wiping 3 mass extractors from existence as Jonas struggles to pull up enough units to eliminate that force. Now this engineer is going to be able to rebuild the mass extractor there. Hopefully we get a bit of reclaim on this side, but I think that Jonas is criminally understaffed with build power, and those engineers are not going to be available to get out and get reclaim as he needs them. Let's go ahead and take a total look at the field. We've got 5 land factories producing versus 6 going on 7, but we do have 2 more land factories producing after 1 more energy storage and, oh no, 2 energy. Why are you building 2 energy storage? That could have been a factory and you don't need more than 1. Unless you're going to try to save for a gun upgrade on a minimum amount of power possible. That could be what he's going for. I don't know for sure, but that is going to cost him a lot of mass in the meantime. He is going to lose a couple more mass extractors, looking very hurt, much more so than Esperon was a moment ago, and he's also going to lose out on control in the top edge. Esperon getting another factory down on the front line, probably for the sole purpose of getting reclaim engineers out in front. Jonas has upgraded a T2 mass extractor, which explains why he is so desperately low on unit counts compared to his opponent. I think that that may have cost him quite dearly, and I don't know if he'll be able to recover in time. ACU extending just a little bit further than is comfortable and not doing anything productive. So let's go take a closer look at what these guys are doing. If we set to number 1, that is going to be around 50 total land units on the field, rocking 21 mass, 260 power income, fluctuating between positive and negative as he's getting reclaim, which is balanced as all things should be. And then if we switch over to Jonas, 23, 260, 50 are the comparison numbers, and we're at 25, 280, and 30. Although we do have 1 bomber in the mix that is trying oh so desperately to make ends meet. So that is where we're sitting, folks. Jonas ahead by the skin of his teeth on income until that mass extractor died. Now they are dead even and struggling a bit on his unit count, only producing with an even number of land factories and losing out on the reclaim on this side of the field, though he is now getting some reclaim on the other edge. This is going to be a very tough uphill fight for him, but it is not out of the question that he'll be able to swing it. We do have a gun upgrade going down on Esperon, which means, yes, he is pausing his way to the gun upgrade, 5% at a time. It is going to take him a while to get there. If Jonas is able to drop this gun upgrade now, with some assistance, he'll be able to finish it much more quickly thanks to all of the power that he has in storage. And he has started it. So if they can get that at least at the same time, if not Jonas slightly ahead, that will do wonders for his ability to maintain. It looks like the unit count is slightly closer than it was a moment ago, but we are still seeing a pretty hefty advantage on the red color. We got 13 versus 33. Jonas burning through his energy in storage. Let's go ahead and set to 0. That is, actually, he is positive on power somehow, mostly due to being in what I would consider a desperate level of mass stall. Although, with the power stall that is going on Esperon's side, he is actually not making any more mass than his opponent is. And this is why power stall is the worst of stalls. Your mass extractors actually stop working when you're under power stall, and it drives you into an even more dire situation than you might otherwise be in. We do have a T2 factory upgrade online, though. That is going to start building a Cerberus turret up on the front with a T2 engineer, and we have a hoplite in, which is going to be able to range even the gun upgraded ACU. Hoplites can be a monumental pain in the buttocks to deal with. Not something that you want to see every day. And Jonas is rapidly closing in on his completed gun upgrade, as Evan is also in the same boat. So basically what we're going to have going on here, that was a beautiful bomber right there. Lots of units damaged. What we're going to have here is a Cerberus turret, which is not a lot of damage. I grant you that. Cerberus turrets are the king of plinkies. However, that is still some base damage with a very long reach that Jonas is going to have to deal with in order to move on this position. We're going to have a duel between two gun-upgraded commanders with a roughly even amount of units, one with a couple of T2 mixed in and a Cerberus turret, and the other with a slightly earlier gun upgrade completion and an early T2 kill. So Jonas right now is actually, oh my goodness, ahead in T1 land unit count. However, he is struggling for map control. Also got a second T2 mass extractor online, which is bonkers. Holy cow, dude, what are you planning on doing with that? Esperon moving into the ACU for all he's worth, hoping that he can get the damage in with the Cerberus turret to make up the difference as units close in on Jonas. Jonas, of course, really needs to move, there we go, to overcharging and damaging units as opposed to the enemy ACU. That is a meat shield that you do not want to engage, and I wish that he could see, he can see, what I can see right now. With that scout overhead, he should know that he has more than enough units to go in for a full engagement on this base, wipe out the single Cerberus turret, and he will be in a position to completely and totally overrun the other side. But I think he's underestimating his own ability to defeat this foe, and that is going to cost him precious time, because as this other Cerberus turret comes online, it is going to double up the damage on his ACU. Get your freaking units in. Come on. You can do this. He's got the overcharge in. He's hitting the wrong things. Now he's too low on HP. Oh, no. No. I love rooting for the underdog. And Jonas, I have to say, has a little bit of my bias because he is one of our own. He had that. He could have won that. That was completely within his grasp due to an extended power stall from Esperon and an ill-advised, let's go with that, an ill-advised T2 factory upgrade simultaneous with trying to get the gun commander, and that completely and totally screwed his income and his unit count. Jonas came back even though he took two ill-advised T2 mass extractor upgrades, because that is typically something that does not happen on Theta, and good God almighty, that was definitely something. Was it not? Alright, well, I do not have a score screen. That has glitched out for me, so we are just going to bail on this game. Well played to both of these guys. Unfortunately, slight missteps sometimes make all the difference in these games. That is going to wrap everything up for this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, feel free to drop a like and share it with someone. If you want to support the channel, catch the streams, or join the Discord, check out the links in the description. Thank you all for being at least partially insane, and I will see you in the next one.